So I was online last week, and I can admit this, I was on Facebook. I'm allowed to be on Facebook, it's okay. And I saw a post from my first cousin, Lynn, and it was quite interesting to me because it's probably something that will emanate with any parents in the room or any pet owners. It was a post from my cousin Lynn, and it said, really need to get my hands on a paddling pool. Have searched Drogheda high and low, can't source a paddling pool anywhere. It's been promised to the kids. I'm a bad mummy, help. And I don't have kids, so this was the first time my sort of awareness was alerted to the fact that there was a paddling pool crisis in Ireland in the current heatwave. And I kind of smiled as I was watching the thread and people answering, giving various solutions to where you could source a paddling pool. But then I kind of sat back and I started to look at it from a business perspective. And it was really interesting. So once the obvious solutions were being exhausted, Jeff, you'd be delighted to know I suggested Littlewoods, but I think you were sold out, unfortunately. But there was, try Smith's, try this hardware store. Do you know you can do click and collect in Argos? Her husband works in RT in Dublin here, and said, is Declan going to Dublin? Do you know if he reserves this, he can pick it up in Stephen's Green? But then as all the sort of Irish solutions were exhausted, very quickly people were saying, I've just searched Google and I found this camping supplies company in France who will deliver to Ireland within 2 days. We got one there last week. And then there was American options that could deliver within 4 days. And it just struck me that this is exactly how it happens now. And then it went a step further to Niall's world, where it was social, and YouTube came up. It was like, don't buy this brand. My husband bought one. Here's a video of him on YouTube. He couldn't pump the bloody thing up. And then there was loads of videos of people who saying, don't buy this brand. There's unboxing of paddling pools. And apparently there was a bunch of paddling pools that had all been ripped, that had come in from China and people had bought. And this was all on social media and threads. So this was all happening in front of me. And then, it was funny because as I was on Twitter and G+ and everything, I just realized that there was a paddling pool issue in Ireland. And, like the Drogheda Independent had a lead headline. And then apparently in the UK, there was fights when people were trying to buy paddling pools for kids or pets. And they were trying to figure out the dog needed it over the child and which was more important. But I suppose what it meant for me is this is the new world. So like if Lynn, my cousin, who is a mother of 4 in a regional town in Ireland, that's the lengths that she'll go to today to source goods, and that's changing consumer habits. And that's what's affecting your business and our business. So as Sheila nicely said, I'm Cera Ward, Head of Sales for Google Ireland, and myself and my team, one of which is here today, Ruth, we look after top tier accounts in Ireland, so Irish accounts or major accounts that are working in Ireland. And our job is to help them get the most out of the web, whether that be through using Google products or trying to get them to navigate the web for their benefit, because Google will do okay out of that. So I don't know if you may or may not know, Google's in Ireland 10 years this year. It started with 5 people in 2003 in an office off Stephen's Green. We now have 2,500 down in Barrow Street, a few out in a data centre, but the bulk of 2,500 in Barrow Street. Dublin is very important to Google. It's the 3rd biggest office outside the US. So biggest is San Francisco out in Silicon Valley. The next one is New York, and the next biggest is Dublin, by a long shot. It's EMEA headquarters, which means we serve Europe, Asia, and Africa from Dublin. Very, very interesting place to be, particularly when you're an Irish person who doesn't have a lot of languages. So we have representations in Barrow Street from 65 different countries, and we speak 67 different languages from there. The average Googler speaks 2 to 3 languages. So if any of you want your kids to work in Google in the future, make sure they keep up their languages. So as I said, I'm going to talk to you today I'm going to sort of talk about some global trends, then take it into Ireland and talk about 3 major consumer trends that we see that are affecting how people are, customer journeys online and how people are purchasing today. And then at the very end, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the shop of the future. Very happy to know it's quite consistent with what Niall said, so we're obviously not spoofing Niall, or we're looking at the same stuff. So first and foremost, there's 2.4 billion people on the web worldwide. That's a lot of people with access to the web. I suppose more interesting, this is growing exponentially year over year. So that was 2 billion only 2 years ago, so the numbers are flying up. The other piece you have to look at is the amount of people that are accessing the web via these devices. So Most of the online world and the people that are going to come online in the next couple of years are going to come via a mobile device. They will never have a desktop experience. It will be straight to mobile. So if you think about that, that's why a lot of people were saying, and Niall had said, build for mobile first. Sub-Saharan Africa, South America, all these places will go to mobile first. They will never experience a desktop device. So that's how important mobile is. Within those 2.4 billion, 60%, 60, purchased online in the last 12 months. So as Niall said, people are happy to transact online. And of those 60%, when they were 61,000 of them were surveyed, and they said 9 out of 10 sales were influenced by the web in some way, shape or form. So they may not have made the full purchase online, but they did probably ROPO, research online, purchase offline, or the online touched their customer journey in some way, shape or form when they were doing online research or something like that. So even if you have a product that you will never fully transact online, be very aware that customers are probably researching about it online before they come to your shop or into your office. Okay, so much debate as to what the abbreviation for trillion is, but apparently it's TN. Some people think it's TR. So 1.1 trillion was spent online last year. And this is set to grow to 2 trillion in 3 years by 2016. So it's growing exponentially. Again, very important here, everyone talks about Asia, China, going to rule the world. 2/3 of this growth, yes, part of it's come from China, the rest is coming from Western Europe. And you know what 4 countries have been called out in Western Europe as to driving this? Germany, Spain, France, and Ireland. So we are one of the ones that are being earmarked to drive an awful lot of growth because Irish people are very happy to transact online. So let's take it a little bit closer to home. 2.6 million Irish adults are online, right? So that's 80% of the Irish population, adults. Let's compare that to the EU average. 65% is the EU average for people to be online. This is growing exponentially. We are the 7th fastest growing country in the world for online adoption, growing 10% year over year. So Irish people are online and we're coming online en masse. We're also very happy to spend online. So Pat Rabbitt launched the National Digital Strategy last week. And there's loads of studies floating around as to how much Irish people spend online, but they did a full study, so across consumer goods, tech, hardware, software, B2B, B2C, and they come up with a figure of 5.2 billion. UPC put it at about 3.7 billion about 12 months ago in their study, probably a little bit more consumer goods focused. I suppose what was interesting in these figures was that food, beverage, and grocery came out very high, which was a surprise to me, as did clothing and, as you'd suspect, travel insurance. So Irish people are very happy to spend online. How do we spend online? So of the people who are spending online, 76% said that they frequently purchase, like monthly purchases via a desktop device. So that's like your average, your laptop or your office computer or your PC. Then there's doubling up. People like to use multiple devices. So 38% are happy to transact on a smartphone, which I kind of find fairly phenomenal, given there's only 8% of sites in Ireland that are mobile enabled and make that an easy process. So chances are this money's gone out of the country, and 44% are transacting on tablet. You'll see there's overlap there. People are happy to transact on various devices. This can be smaller things like tickets and stuff, but it's also big ticket items. Niall mentioned earlier about Airbnb. We have a stat from eBay to say that they sell on average 3 Ferraris each quarter via their mobile app. People are happy to buy Ferraris via mobile devices, so yeah, you know, this is the way it's going, folks. Okay, I'm going to talk about 3 trends, and then I'm going to kind of take them down as to how I think it affects retail specifically. So today's consumer is connected. Today's consumer has, I don't need to tell you, has very high expectations. And lastly, they're global. So let's talk about the connected consumer. So I'll revert back to these. The figure's about 57% of mobile penetration in Ireland at the moment, set to rise to 70-odd%. So as Niall said, everyone who's important, most people who have a wage and have disposable cash have a mobile-enabled or smartphone. What these allow is 24/7 connectivity. And what that means is that Consumers have more time to research, more time to read reviews, more time to check prices, and more time to just know more about your products than you do. We deal with a lot of car dealers, and they would say people walk onto forecourts now not to find out about the car, not even to test drive it, but just to negotiate a price. They know more about the car that they want when they step onto that forecourt because they have 24/7 connectivity. We look at these 150 times a day. The average Irish person looks at a smartphone 150 times a day. So we have this connectivity, then we're probably watching TV simultaneously on a tablet or a laptop, and then we're at work. So we're constantly connected. And we move constantly between devices all the time, and the average Irish person owns about 2 connected devices. So what does that mean? That means that we take cross-screen paths to purchase. So paths to purchase are no longer linear. If I'm going to buy something online, I don't necessarily just start on a mobile device and finish that on a mobile device. So Lynn, my cousin, when she actually did buy a paddling pool, of which she got from that French camping site, she first did that post from her mobile when she was sitting in her back garden watching her kids sweating in the sun, I assume. She did more research that evening on her tablet, and she transacted a few days later on her desktop device. So she moved simultaneously or seamlessly between screens to make that purchase. So we need to be very aware that people are moving between screens. They're not necessarily starting and finishing on one device. Not only do we move between screens, but we move between offline and online. So people move seamlessly between channels. You'll see here, 33% of people started searching on a mobile device and then walked into a store to transact. It's that reverse ropo, that happens too. So people move between screens and move between channels. So what does that mean for you as retailers? Well, it means that you need to be found. Niall said this earlier. So we would describe search as a database of intentions. So anytime I type something, think about how you use the search bar. You type in something that you want or something that you want to know about. So literally people are going, hello, I want a paddling pool over here. So allow your shop to be found, have a presence, allow it to be there. We talk about moments that matter in Google. And moments that matter are moments that consumers are looking for information about a product or service. And if you can answer a moment that matter, you win. A moment that matter might just be a request for information, but it might mean you're in my consideration set and you never would have been before. Or a moment that matter might be something that you answer and you'll get a sale. So recently I was online and I was trying to figure out the difference between dress sizes, UK and US dress sizes. Any women will know that they're different, right? So I was just Googling what does this size mean in UK sizes, and ASOS came up first. And it wasn't a sales page, it wasn't anything, it was just information from ASOS. Now I was aware of ASOS anyway, but if I hadn't have been, all of a sudden they'd won a moment that mattered for me. I was sort of more aware of their brand and they had given me a positive brand experience. So now they're in my consideration set. 2 weeks ago I was running up Grafton Street late for a meeting in a pair of very high heels and I broke my heel. I was like, shit. So took out my mobile device. I was like, I didn't really know it was a heel bar. Googled, heel bar near Grafton Street, and an ad came up with a click to call button. I called him, I said, I'm on Grafton Street, can you fix this now? He said yes. He was off a little side street, up 2 flights of stairs. I never would have found this person, but he won my moment that matters with that ad, with that click to call button. And he got my business. So there can be long-term moments that matter and short-term moments that matter. But make sure you allow your brands to be found. Niall said it, Irish people use search. 97% of the Irish population use search to find information about products or service. So have good SEO. Have good PPC. By PPC, I mean the ads, the 3 on the top and the 8 on the side. It's pay-per-click. You should have PPC for all your major products listed, and you should have good rankings because that's what will get you there. And if I'm holding up my hand saying I want a paddling pool or I want a heel bar and you do that, you should put your ad in front of me or be very high on SEO. So allow yourself to be found. If you're a bricks and mortar store, you should have a maps listing here as well. There should be a maps listing on the right hand side. So good SEO, well linked. Good PPC for all your products that you do. Let people know that you sell paddling pools. Beyond that, have maps, use things like social and video. Here's just an example. This just kind of a little bit disappointing when you look. I just Googled wedding dresses Ireland. Why I did wedding dresses? Because it's one of the highest ticket items that most people will buy in terms of apparel in Ireland. There's a constant sale. It's a given someone's going to buy a wedding dress every year. And what gets me here is that the 3 on the top and the 8 on the side, they're all ads. And there's UK advertisers in that auction. Stealing Irish wedding dress sellers lunch. So, you know, people should be in there front and center, letting you know, potential wedding dress buyers buy wedding dresses rather than letting them steal their lunch. So, number one, first and foremost, be found. Allow yourself to be found and let the world know what you do. Next is, remember I mentioned that people move between devices. So, consumers like a consistent experience. Consumers like to know where to find stuff. They don't like to be on, you know, a small screen 1 minute and then go onto a desktop and get a completely different experience, because people are a little bit suspicious of that. They're like, oh, I was on that website in work and those Ugg boots are just there, and then they go onto this and they can't find it the same way. People like a consistent brand experience. So be aware when they move between screens, they like to know where stuff is. You want to make that journey and that funnel easy for them. So it should have the same look and feel. So here's an example from eBay. They're obviously using responsive design here, but responsive design isn't always the answer. A good mobile optimized site and a good desktop site equally could do, but people like to know where stuff is. And if they've been searching something on a desktop, go to a smaller screen, they want to know where they can find it. You want to make that journey as easy as possible for them to get to sale. Cross-channel experience. Here's an example of Amazon. When they started selling the Kindle, they actually opened up physical stores and opened up phone lines. So they went from being an online to an offline because they knew that their consumers wanted a flexible channel experience. So be aware that consumers will move between offline and online, and you should have an omni-channel approach. I don't differentiate between your brand online and offline. I want to buy something online and return it in store. If I don't, I don't know that your organization is siloed. I don't care that you have an online team and an offline team. I don't care that you have a load of franchisees that don't like me returning stuff. To me, that's just a negative brand experience. Consumers don't differentiate between your brand online and offline, and they want a consistent brand experience between these channels. So we all know that multi-channel consumers are the utopia. They spend more, they're more loyal, people aim. If you have bricks and mortar store and online, multi-channel consumers are, as I said, more loyal and spend more. Debenhams have done some research in this area, and they know that a multi-channel consumer is worth 3 times more than an online consumer and 2 times more than an offline consumer. So they're working towards getting people to be multi-channel consumers. John Lewis are probably the leaders in this field. They have 2/3 of all their consumers are multi-channel consumers. The average basket value and loyalty is much more. So that's why people need to, and the only way you're going to do it is have a consistent experience. They don't differentiate. Again, Apple, they have a very consistent brand experience between offline and online. These are big brands, but you know, it can be done as well on a small scale. The last thing I'm going to talk about in this area is attribution. So be aware of the value of each touch point, particularly mobile. So some people would say nobody would ever buy something on a mobile device, so therefore my mobile website is no good. But chances are they're probably using it as a step along the journey. And you as business owners need to attribute credit to each touch point. You might sell something that people will never really buy online, even if you have a really nice basket, checkout system, everything like that. People might still want to come into store with you, but they're probably using mobile and desktop as what we'd say a step along the journey. So make sure you're giving valid credit to each step. Adidas did a study last December about their mobile. They'd invested a lot in their mobile site, and they're wondering, did it really pay off? You know, we're not getting a lot of, not enough sales on the mobile device. And they realized there was a lot of traffic coming from mobile going to their store locator page. And then when they realized, they did a survey, and they just did a quick survey of people coming in, realized that 20% of the people that store locator page went straight into store. So they were just on Grafton Street or whatever, finding a local shop. So in Ireland, we know that, I think Sheila had this in the retail news recently, 89% of all searches in Ireland have a local intent that come from mobile. And 90% of those take immediate action. So they have a real intent, and they want to do it quickly, and they want to do it now. So by take action, I mean walk into store, call that store, or send an email. So they're not just killing time, they have an intent. So if you're trying to figure out mobile, here's a really good resource from Google, howtogomo.com, free. It's a resource that gives you loads of tips and tricks. There's loads of site tests there. You can actually put your site and test your own site and give it a mobile diagnostic and sort of see how your site looks on a mobile device and sort of tips and tricks and how you can improve it. So just think about it again. So we've connected consumers that have information 24/7. They're moving between screens and cross channels and they don't differentiate. And just make sure that you as consumers are attributing the right credit or the right amount of credit to each of the touch points, even if they're not actually converting for you. So if your desktop site isn't converting or your mobile site, it might be supplying key information that results in that end sale. And lastly here we would be saying is just take a full 360 look at your business, and you shouldn't differentiate between online and offline because consumers don't. So next up, if we go into consumers have high expectations. They have really high expectations, and particularly around two areas. One is website speed, and the other one is customer service. I don't have to tell you this, but speed is particularly interesting. So Google, we obsess about speed. Digital is just so fast-paced, you have to. If you stand still and you're slow, it won't happen. I obviously do too, because I speak exceptionally fast, as some of you might be realizing right now. But in Google, if you search something on a homepage, you will see we give you XXXX million results in 0.0004 seconds. And we do that because that's our differentiator. Our engineers obsess about giving you as many results, relevant results, as possible in the shortest space of time. Because we know if we're a millisecond slower than the competition, you're gone. And we've that worked out, so that's why we obsess about speed. We've a saying in the organization that fast is better than slow. The average Irish person will wait 8 seconds for a website to load, and then they're gone. And 1 in 4 will never return. And that is actually getting exponentially reduced every single year. On a mobile device, we wait for 4 seconds, and then we're gone. So just realize how important that is. So that we're very impetuous in this constantly connected world. We've no patience. I look at myself, I do something and, my mobile, and my husband laughs, like, Cera, you're like, would you give it a chance? And I'm gone, because I'm one tab away from your competitor who might have loaded faster. I'll open up 3 or 4 tabs, try and load 3 or 4 sites, and whichever one loads first, I'm on. And that's today's world. This isn't super duper highway stuff. This is common. That's the way it is. Really good quote here from Joseph Cohn. MEC Global is a global ad agency, and I'll just read it out for you. The technology which has given us very quick, very fast responses is also training people into the impression that they can get anything they want, any information they want, at the moment they think about it. And this is it. We are, and you'll see it in your own lives, we're really, really impetuous. But that can have huge implications for your business. So what I would suggest, and what this means for you, is start obsessing with speed. Give someone in the organization the job of improving your online speed, because it can be really important. So here's another free tool from Google that I suggest you try. It's Site Page Speed Test, if you just Google it. And this will give a diagnostic on your website, give you an idea of how fast each page loads, what are the slow pages, and then what's causing each page to be slow, and it'll list them in priorities as to what you should start to do. Loads of other versions of this out there, paid versions, everything. Your web team might know them, but definitely worth starting to obsess about speed. And as I said, if you're the business owner, you can use this to improve it yourself, or actually just give it to your web team. So speed is general for every business, but particularly in the retail space, and this is kind of echoing what Niall said earlier, is being more convenient. We are seeing a huge uplift, and a lot of partners that we deal with would say they're getting seen as a huge USP if they can do next day, same day, or click and collect. This is the way it's going now, and that's going to be the differentiator. So Tesco's have opened up 1,000 click and collect points in their stores in the UK. You'll see Asda, and you'll see, I'm going to talk about Coles later on, but next day and click and collect is huge. And it's up to you. Consumers will be priced to a point, and then it'll be about delivery. Niall said it himself. He's a typical consumer that, he wants convenience. And most people, we will find, are willing actually to pay that little bit more for convenience as well. So last Christmas, this is a UK stat, unfortunately, because I don't have it for Ireland. Last Christmas, the week before Christmas, we saw a 61% increase in search queries related to express delivery and next day delivery, late Christmas presents. And people were willing to pay to get express and next day delivery. So anyone that was coming up and saying, yes, I get you X product and I will get it to you quickly, or I'll get it to a collection point that you can pick it up, they won. They won that moment that matters. So this, I would say, really try and be more convenient and more flexible in your delivery channels. And just be aware that this is the way it's going. Lastly then, global. So today's consumer is global. Like, the internet is borderless. It doesn't respect geographical boundaries. So that means that your consumer can be from anywhere in the world, and you don't have to. So if you're a regional retailer in Ireland, no longer are you limited to the county that you're in. You've all of Ireland for a start, and then you actually have the world. So the average Irish person spends 27 days, 3 hours, 17 minutes, and hits 22 sites for an average purchase of consumer goods. So I first looked at that and I was like going, it's a bit mad, you know, that's a bit long and a bit mad. But then when you think about it a little bit more, payday might be something to do with this, and it's an average, so it'll be driven up by some longer ticket items. The days kind of hit me, but when I looked at the time didn't really baffle me at all, because if I think, I live in Castleknock, which is very near here to Blanchardstown. If I had to come to Blanchardstown on a Saturday to buy something, it would take me longer than 3 hours, 17 minutes to get door to door, come in, go around 1 or 2 shops, park, and go home. So to think that people are spending 3 hours, 17 minutes when they're constantly connected with mobile devices, tablets sitting on their knee, when they're watching Coronation Street, 3 hours, 17 minutes isn't that long. So just be aware that with a global playing field, there's so much choice. I certainly wouldn't have hit 22 shops in those 3 hours, 17 minutes, whereas I can hit 22 shops online from all around the world in 3 hours, 17 minutes. So just be aware today's consumer has lots of choice. Of that 5.2 billion that I spoke about earlier from Pat Rabbitt's digital strategy report, he claims 73% of that went out of the country. So, as I said earlier, we're just losing out. We've the most advanced e-commerce market in the world next door. People think it's the US. It's not. The UK is the most advanced e-commerce market in the world. So that creates opportunity, because it means that we're in an environment where Irish consumers are used to transacting online and they're spending on UK sites, but you can lure them back. You know, they know how to do this. You don't have to teach them. You can lure them back by just getting a little bit smarter and allowing yourself to be found. Be there front and center. Answer their moments that matter. Give them products on terms that they like and delivery options and choice. So it's important to know. The other huge advantage for us, we speak English, you know? So straight away, you don't have language issues. Most of the world speaks English, and it's a huge advantage. So what does it mean for you? First thing I will say is you will have analytics running on your website, your Facebook page, anything you're doing. So first and foremost, check, are you getting any international traffic? Check, are you getting it? Now, some of you are probably going, Cera, if I was getting international traffic, I'd know, because I'd be getting international sales. Maybe you would, but maybe you're not making it easy you're not giving international delivery options, so people have just dropped off. They went round your site, found the product, wanted it, but then you didn't give them the option to buy it. So check, have you latent demand there? Check, are you getting traffic from the UK? Because remember, the internet's borderless. People don't respect geographies anymore. If you just answer a moment that matters for someone in France, like that French camping website did with paddling pools in Ireland, if you can give it to me on the terms I want, I will buy it. So first of all, check your analytics. Are you getting international traffic? Secondly, then look at things like this. There's another free tool from Google, Global Market Finder. And you just put in a couple of search terms or a couple of lists of products that you sell. And what this tool will tell you, and it's free, it will tell you local monthly searches in that geographical region. It will give you an idea of the CPC bids, or the cost per click. And it will also give you an idea of the competition in that market. So this will let you see, is there room, is there demand for your products in other markets around the world? So we would do this with Mixed Garage. We all know Mixed is very successfully exporting at the moment. So we did this with Mixed Garage with a couple of their products and realized there was demand in some rather obscure European markets, of which they have very nice profitable lines to right now. We used this with Paddy Power when they were moving into Italy to see that there was a huge demand in Italy and very little competition, and CPCs were a hell of a lot cheaper than they were in Ireland. So it's a global playing field. And you can be a very small store in County Monaghan and you can be shipping globally. This one's for the Cambridge Satchel Company. I don't know if any of you have ever looked at the Cambridge Satchel Company. Lady who started a business out of her kitchen making leather satchels because her kid was being bullied in school and she wanted to send it to a private school and she had to make some money. So she made a satchel for her daughter, and then her daughter said, "Mum, why don't you make these?" Now she's a global business and she's done loads of work with us and finding global markets. You'll see they're all for leather satchels. So she's shipping to all these organizations out of her kitchen. So if that can be done, anything can be done. Allow yourselves to be found and give them options, international options. If you want to get really fancy, then you can start translating. And again, another free tool, Google Translator Kit. Not perfect, can't have the odd little obscure translation, but it's a good starting point. But if you want, English is perfectly fine to operate in the start, but 4 to 1 ratio of people's probability to buy if you give them the information in their own language. So you're really increasing your chances. So just think, export, import, it's a two-way street. So, while money might be going out of Ireland, you can actually attract money to Ireland, or you can win back that 73%. So the future, a little bit about what we see coming. Told you it was very like Niles. So wearable technology and what that means for your business. So I was in Mountain View recently in head office and I got a chance to try one of these. They're very rare. It's kind of phenomenal because it's obviously a pair of glasses you put on with a little tiny screen, but the way it's projected, it kind of sits sort of comfortably far enough away. If you've ever seen those sort of really, really fancy Mercs, I was in one that someone owned and they had holograms that come up in the screen, so the speedometer and everything was it almost looked like it was on the road. It's a similar sort of experience when you're wearing Google Glass. But wearable technology and what that will mean for retail. As Niall said, you could have apps, owns apps, but you could also be in-store mapping. So I could be walking around the likes of Macy's and they'd know exactly where I was and hit me with product details and information right at point of purchase, or give me different discounts right at point of purchase. So I think wearable tech, I don't know how, will have a huge impact on your business. So it's just something to be aware of. Again, convenience, and I have an Amazon locker here, so this is the way Amazon are moving to it. But this little business here in the UK, Collect Plus, they've partnered with loads of little SMEs and smaller businesses to work out drop-off and pick-up points so you don't have to have that post office experience. And it's doing tremendously well. But tomorrow's consumers, even today's consumers, are really, really going to demand that you make your delivery terms convenient to them, or else they won't shop with you. And they want delivery to fit in with their lives, not the other way around. And you know what? They won't wait, because next day has just gone through the roof. Next day is where it's going to be where it's at. So waiting 3, 4, 5 days to ship stuff isn't, and what we're finding is people are willing to pay for convenience. So if I was going into town to buy something and I parked for 3 hours, that would probably cost me about 12, 15 quid, depending on where I parked. If I get express delivery, it's the same price. So Brazil, they'll never pay that. You'd be surprised what people would pay for it. This company, I don't know, does anyone know of Coles in Australia? Well, yeah, of course you do eat it. So Coles, supermarket brand in the US, I think, or sorry, in Australia. Am I right? Supermarket, grocery. So these guys operate all over Australia, and they've 50 of these collection, click and collect points. But these are, again, like Parcel Motel, are located at easy to drive to locations, so basically petrol stations in essence. So these big lockers are big enough to put your full grocery shop in it. They're refrigerated, and what they do is same day delivery. I order it that morning, I can pick it up and work on the way home. But more to the point, Coles have pioneered what they call remote delivery, because they have really remote areas in Queensland and New Zealand that they have to get groceries to. And they've realized if they can do this better than anyone else, they have won an entire nation and an entire region in Australia. So they've pioneered remote delivery, whereby they will get those groceries to your transport point. And the key transport points, which I was baffled with, were barges, train stations, and airports. And they will put them in a refrigerated locker for you. And this is what they're doing to win business. So just to give you an idea of how that convenience is going to the next step. And consumers are only going to expect it. This is now becoming the norm, not the exception. And it'll be the new USP. Anyone who has bricks and mortar stores will love this one. Integrated fulfillment is where it's at. So anytime, anywhere, stock management systems. So Macy's, Nordstrom, all the big guys in the US, this is how they're pioneering in this field, and this is what they're saying is making their profit margins even more profitable. So what they'll do is they'll fulfill your order from any store, any warehouse at the most cost-effective rate, because they take a multi-channel approach. So I can order something in Macy's, I can be in New York and it can be filled from the New York store, it could come from a warehouse. Macy's had 27 stores in this state last year. They'll have 500 by the end of the year, and apparently they have 800 or 900 stores in total. And they said it was one of their biggest, you're probably more familiar with retail than me. Macy's had a very good year last year, and they put integrated fulfillment and being able to fulfill at the most profitable channel possible down to this integrated fulfillment. Nordstrom are on a 4-year plan to get everything into anywhere stock management. So this is going to be a big differentiator in the future. And lastly then, personalized experience. So it's all a bit clinical right now, with the exception of Amazon, which can be a bit freaky sometimes when they're making recommendations and things, but it's good. People like that experience. There's going to be a little bit more personalization taken into it, and people that can make it a little bit more personal will do well. So you think about your local butcher or your local grocer, the nice piece about going to shop there is that it's personal. So what you're going to have to try and see coming into retail online is a little bit more of a personal experience, and not just login details and everything very clinical. So this is Morrison's in the UK, and they have, obviously it's wine, so taste was very hard to do online, but what they did is 2 very simple little quizzes. One being this 3-step quiz here, that they're trying to differentiate your palate and try and get an idea about the type of wines that you might like, and they store that, and then what they'll do is they'll surface wines or recommendations to you based on obviously your history patterns, but also what they think will work in your palate according to this little test. They also have an integrated version of this that I suggest you all go on and do, because it's really clever. It's an interactive video version of it, and it's just done well and really nice and personal. So that's all for me, other than I would say, I think the next time that there's a heat wave in Ireland, I suspect my cousin Lynn will be buying paddling pools for her grandchildren, and Lord only knows how she'll do it, except it's a really exciting space. It's really fast moving, but really exciting, so who knows what the future will bring. Thank you.
Thank you, Cera. Ma'am. Okay, we're going to take some questions. Jeff?
Thank you, Cera. That was amazing. I have so many questions. I don't know where to start, but I'll just pick one.
That was because I mentioned you.
Yeah, thank you very much. You talked about page speed. Okay, so and obviously page speed is really important for anyone in e-commerce. Video is becoming more and more and more important, and the more video you put on your site, the more issues you have with page speed. Is this something that you're seeing with clients that you're working with, and are there any out-of-the-box solutions that retailers of any size can look at, or is it just a case of develop?
Yeah. Well, 2 schools of thought is every time you put something on your site, you should take something off. So any of our conversion specialists would say that. So it's not brochure to put everything up there forever. So every time you put something on, you should take it off. Secondly is use remote hosting. So don't host it on your own site. Link it to the likes of, Google own YouTube. So of course I'm going to say YouTube, but it is the 2nd biggest search engine in the world. But host it remotely so it's not actually on your site. Just link it from your site. Have it branded up so that you get all the credit as your brand, and even have sales messages at the end or that people can click off to buy. But you don't actually have to hold everything on your own site. But it is great. It's the new, it is the on-tap. Niall touched on this, and particularly in Ireland, it's much easier to rank very well in the YouTube space, and we use it all the time. Anybody else here? Okay, good.
Yeah, hi. I was interested there what you were saying about up to 73% is going out of the country. And then a lot of UK sites of the internationals, big guns, are ranking very high in the SEO and the PPC. But I was interested in the .ie domain. Does it have any precedence or any clout if you're, you know, the way you might have a .ie domain and you might have a .com domain?
Yeah.
You know, is there any, do you know anything about?
Okay, so I'll start saying this. I'm not an SEO expert, but because we have to keep it very separately because I work on the advertising side and that it genuinely it's very separate. But what I will say is, because I've answered this a good few times for clients, is so domain does have some relevance simply because Google tries to return the most relevant results, okay? So if you know Cera has searched from Blanchardstown in Dublin, there is somewhat of an assumption that IE might be more relevant than .com. But if .com has done very well with people similar to Cera in Blanchardstown who have searched and they've liked that experience, it can do well as well. You know, so what I suggest you do is if you go on to Webmaster Tools, but we also have a YouTube channel for Webmaster Tools. There's a guy called Matt Cutts. Look him up. He's very good. He speaks English, which is rare in this space, and he actually works for Google and he's an SEO specialist. But they answer an awful lot of these questions live and video them, and there's a lot around web hosting, server hosting, domain naming conventions and the effect that that has. But it's always, Google will always try and supply the most relevant results. So you could have an IE, I could have a .com, and at the start you might be being shown more, but if consumers haven't liked that by clicking on it and going into it, the other one can trump it. So it's all about positive user experience. You know, PPC is easy, just get into the auction. Do you know, that's the one is, you know, PPC is one you can just get in there for. But if you're not there, you can't. But it is disappointing to see the likes of high profitable items like wedding dresses and these UK competitors just stealing your lunch. You know, it is. We just have to be found. Anyone else?
Hello. Are you looking to launch Google Shopping in Ireland?
In Ireland?
Yes.
Yes. Short term, no. Well, I say short term, no. So I work in the Irish market. So what we see is the 3 to 6 month rollout plan. Ireland isn't on that at the moment. And simply because I'd say it's population and some other bigger countries are, there's a small enough team in that space, Google Shopping, not so much shopping as the merchant center space. So you need to have a merchant center feed for Google Shopping, and unless that's done, so short term, I can't see it. I'm sure it will come at some time, but not in the 3 to 6 months as far as I can see. Any more? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering where Google are in relation to the online wallets and so on, and particularly in Ireland, and using smartphones to purchase and so on.
So Google Wallet is about, as long as I'm in Google 18 months, so it's there that length. The issue with Wallet at the moment is figuring out A, retailers that have the technology, and B, banks. So we're trying to work with a number of banks to get Wallet fully integrated. And then what you need is a certain amount of technology in retail stores to enable that to happen. So it's very much in the States and San Francisco. Macy's actually have it, but short term, I can't see it here yet. Will come. Wallet and offers will come, but I can't see it in the next year or two. And it's around sorting out banking and financing pieces.
Cera, postcodes introduction September 2014.
Yeah.
What is Google's view on the impact that will have, lift in sales and all that stuff online?
Okay, so you're probably to speak to my committee members on this a little bit more. So limited view, I won't lie, so I'll give a personal view. I think it'll be great, but it will also open us up to huge international competition as well. Because there's actually a lot of big players not playing in the Irish space at the moment because they can't guarantee fulfillment. So they want to do a next day promise, a same day promise, or 24-hour promise. And they can't live up to their fulfillment criteria right now because of the lack of postcodes. So I think great in one sense, but be aware as well that, but again, it's all opportunity, So what you have to do is be in early, get it right so they don't even consider the competition. Am I off the hook?
That's it. Any more questions?
I'm done.
That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.